Hello, everyone. Here we are with our episode 26 of our podcast, Cultivating a New Generation. And this time we have the great honor to be with the author Isabella Rose. And we are going to talk about her latest book, Behind the Mask Smile. So, in order to begin with this journey on the discovery of how to heal yourself by love, we are going to begin by introducing Isabella and, of course, her story of life. So, Isabella, if you want to share, please, your background, your story, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you today. My name is Isabella Rose. I'm a holistic healer, artist, author, and I'm so passionate about helping others and the healing and creative arts. I grew up in the quote perfect dysfunctional home with the alcoholic family. My mother being the perfect enabler, and nobody, I had that happy front, and I could never be myself. So I learned at a very young age that the world was a scary place, and I couldn't tell the truth. I had to protect my mother and my father, especially where my mom was a school teacher in town. So it was very important for me not to tell the truth of what was going on because my mother could lose her job, and that was very hard to do. Um, my mother, I love her so much. I wouldn't have what I have now if it wasn't for my mom and the many sacrifices she made for our family. Um, but she also lived in fear of my father. So at the age of 14, I was raped, and I turned to pen and paper to express my feelings without having negative consequences, anyone to judge me. And nobody in my family understood, nor did they want to understand and help me process what had happened. I became suicidal. My father dragged me from therapist to therapist, and then finally he put me in a psychiatric hospital, which was so scary being a teenager, not knowing what was happening, and the doors locking behind me. It was so frightening because I'd never been in that situation and I had no idea where my father had brought me. And so I was always very spiritual and connected to God and the angels and Jesus growing up. And then in 8th grade, right after I was raped, and my youth group leader being in absolute shock that I would draw a picture of my family, how I envisioned it 30 years from now, with I had 2 children and one of them was handicapped. And she was just so shocked and appalled at that. Um, that everything that I had learned about God being a loving God, everything just I stopped believing, and I started believing that God was hurtful, He was judging, and I stopped spreading the word of love. And my father even tried to have me convert to Catholicism, and the priest blamed the rape on me. So that kind of drew the wedge in between me and the male aspect of deity as I knew it. But I stayed close to the angels and the mother feminine deity of, um, sorry,
Okay, okay, it's okay.
the mother, the feminine aspect of deity. And I had my grandmother um, who lived with us all of my life, and she was my best friend, my nurturer, my protector. And I can't imagine life without her, or what my life would have been without her. Um, we all need that one person in our lives to believe in us. It's kind of like, the failure to thrive baby. Um, we need that loving, nurturing, that human touch, that caring. And I share that in one of my pieces called From Birth from womb to birth and birth to adult in the collaborative book that we just published with Kareem, Mother Self Queen Butterfly Stories.
Okay.
And so I was called recently to um, share my book with the world. We have so much domestic violence going on, and it's increasing now with the pandemic going on. And I wanted others to know that they're not alone in their fight to find self-love, depression, falling in love with a substance user, or even becoming one themselves. Because I followed that path, and I did become a substance user after falling in love with one. And that also followed along with the ancestral path that was laid out before me. I was active substance user for 11 years, and I was in the most toxic relationship I had ever been in. It was like living my childhood over, but with my adult partner. And it got to the point where I started to resent myself and my partner, and I knew something had to change. Like, I was just so miserable, and I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I knew I was meant for so much more than what I was living. So I prayed one night, and I set my full moon intention to learn how to love myself and take my power back from those I had allowed to consciously and subconsciously hurt me. And within 3 days, I had the divine 2x4 that answered my prayers and got me on the healing path of transformation and healing my mind, body, and spirit. I was physically abused 4 times in less than 12 hours. And that's what it took to get me to leave, to get me to love myself. And the healing path is very messy. It's it's cyclical. And I've embraced it every step of the way. And about a year after I committed to myself, I set the intention to find true love. And by the end of the year, we met a man that I had met 4 years prior to the quote first time I met him, because when we first met each other again for the second time, we didn't realize that we were that perfect couple that had met 4 years prior. And Matt was the most amazing man in the whole world. He loved unconditional, and he showed me what true love was about. He showed me that when we talked, that he didn't just hear, that he listened to what I had to say, and he showed me. And to have pure love, I was so blessed. And I carry that love with me every day, and the lessons that he taught me to love myself now the way that he loved me. We were in a horrific car accident, and I should have died in that car accident. I shared with you earlier, my aorta collapsed and tore, my lung collapsed, I fractured my shoulder, broke my humerus, my elbow, 4 ribs, and had major body trauma. And he risked his life to get me to safety before that ambulance came. And that's the ultimate valiant act of love ever. And he said, when I saw the smoke and the steam, I knew I had to get you out of that vehicle. I had to do what it took to keep you alive. I wasn't going to lose you. And unfortunately, very tragically, 2 months later, Matt had a relapse. He was addicted to opioids, and he got addicted to opioids from his own near-death accident, in a logging accident that literally split his head in half. So I carry a lot of survivor's guilt. If we hadn't been in that accident, it wouldn't have triggered wouldn't have triggered his relapse and his friends, pulling him back in at his weakest moment. Um, so now I advocate for recovery, overdose awareness, and I advocate to make changes in our system, to bring awareness to opioid and overdose, as well as domestic violence, you know, um, and it's my mission to help people heal and to know that they too can find self-love and overcome all the adversity. There really is hope, and you're never alone. And if there's one thing like I can offer people is reach out. There's many of resources out there, and even reach out to me. I'm willing to help. I never want anyone to have to suffer or struggle. I if I can touch just one person with my story and help them, it makes it worth sharing. Putting that
Yeah.
out there in the world.
It is a very, very challenging story, filled with many opportunities to embrace that pain and all the suffering that I cannot even imagine passing through all of those things, and having the strength to overcome them. So my first question that I have, and I think that it can help people in similar situations, is what was the one thought or the feeling that you could overcome all of those, well, the first story that you have?
Um, I didn't really know I could overcome any of that really until I was in my late 30s when I was in that toxic relationship. And that was the real true breaking point for me. It was then that I knew when I got that divine 2x4 and left, I felt this, this, my friend came to help me leave the house. And when I got back to her house, she brought me to the police station to file a police report. And then I went back to her house and I took a nap. And I remember when I woke up from the nap, I felt like a whole big boulder had been lifted off my shoulders. And I knew I never had to go back to that ever again. And I knew that everything was going to be okay. And then after Matt died, he and my angels and my faith was what kept me on my healing path. It was what got me through the darkest of days. Because after Matt died, my whole world just collapsed around me. Like all our plans, our whole future we had planned out,
Yeah.
we had mapped out. And in an instant, it was gone. And to have, a lot of people, and I've had mediums confirm that he was my twin flame. And I must say, I do agree. And, it's like your soul being ripped out when you lose your twin flame. And the love we shared was just so pure. There's no way to explain it.
And how could you translate all the force, the struggle, the pain into the fire and into the healing process? How do you change all that energy
Mm-hmm.
that is negative in, well, just by listening to the story,
Mm-hmm.
into something that it's going to be a great help for many, many people that, as you mentioned, they are struggling each day more and more with domestic violence, with addictions to opioids also,
Mm-hmm.
due to the isolation measures and to the lockdown and everything. So what can you tell people to use something negative in your life to change it into positive?
For me, it all started reconnecting with my soul and my spirituality,
Okay,
and rebuilding that solid foundation of faith. And then I also turned to the healing and creative arts,
okay.
writing, drawing, coloring. Right now, I teach cosmic smash booking, which is an intentional creativity process um, that is just amazing. Meditation, grounding outside into earth and just sitting in nature are ways that have helped me heal. And then, of course, like Reiki also helps, and angel energy healing. Aromatherapy is another tool that I use. Um, but I think the biggest thing that helped me get through was connecting to myself and my soul and my heart and bringing it out and connecting more to divinity. Once I learned to love myself and put myself in divinity first, my whole life changed.
Would you say that hope was a very key point to give you that?
Hmm. Absolutely.
So
If
you,
I,
yes, tell me.
yeah, so the hope, I mean, there are times when you might not feel that there is hope, but just take a look around and see one thing that you're grateful for. And that will help you to re-spark hope. It might be just seeing a flower outside or a bird chirping out the window or seeing your nephew and your niece laughing, you know, um, or your beloved pet. I had you know, a dog growing up as a child, and
Mm,
they were such great hope for me back then. They always catch my tears when I was crying.
yeah.
Um, so little things like that can help bring hope into your life.
If I may ask, when you were in the psychiatric institution, what in the moments that you had more awareness, what were the thoughts that you had to go out from that place?
So my father regretted bringing me to the psychiatric hospital, which is my father's pattern. He would do something and then the next day when he was sober, regret it. But for me, um, being with my peers and, we had different kind of therapy groups, and then we would have lunch in the cafeteria, and then we had meeting times together to hang out in our unit. Um, Speaking with them, each one of us thought that the other person's story was worse than ours.
Hmm.
And I remember before I left, I made a promise to several of the friends that I'd made in there, and we all made a pact that we would never go back. And I kept my word. And my father always used it, threw it back against me. Oh well, I can always throw you back in the psych. I can
Hmm.
always throw you back in the hospital. He always used that against me. So it was really hard
Yeah,
to be 14, raped, and you know,
the
have a
pressure.
domineering, controlling father, and already be scared to begin with, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but again, like I had my Grammy. If it wasn't my Grammy when I was younger and a teenager, like I honestly don't know how I would get through. I had a sister who was 8 years older than me, and she was already off in college, starting her own life.
Uh, what can you tell me about your grandmother that helped you to cope with everything?
Oh, my Grammy, she was just the best woman and the best friend that I ever had. She was just so warm, caring, nurturing. I was my grandma's girl, and I'll always be my grandma's girl. Um, we would bake pies together. We would sit outside together. She'd tell me about all the flowers. We'd go for walks together. We played games together. When I didn't feel good, my Grammy was my go-to. Even when I was, you know, really little and I went to bed, like I wouldn't wake up my mother. I would go downstairs and wake up my grandmother and tell her I went to bed, and she'd change me in the bed before my grandmother, before my father knew what happened, and I would get in trouble. So she was always looking out for me and always nurtured me. And as she got older, um, I loved sitting on the couch with her and just holding her hand. And when she finally got to the place where she needed to be in a nursing home, and she wound up with pneumonia and then stopped speaking, it was the hardest.
Mm.
But I, I would still go sit with her and hold her hand for hours and just talk to her and just be with her.
So pretty much all um, the way of being, the way she was, and her energy, all her vibrations helped you to manage all the pain, no?
Absolutely. Yep.
So, well, if I may, I can say that for people that also probably keep struggling with things and they keep repeating, do you think that focusing their energy in one person that they can trust
Hmm.
is the silver lining in all this?
Yes. After I left that toxic relationship, I actually started to make my dreams come true. And I had seen a Facebook ad to become a contributing author to the book 365 Moments of Grace. In hindsight, that book was my saving grace. Um, and Jody and Dan, um, the creators of the 365 book series, became the two people that I could trust. And they
Mm.
lived in Oregon, and they became such an instrumental part of my healing journey. They believed in me when I couldn't even believe in myself. And, and through their help, I learned to believe in myself. And I've continued to make my dreams come true. I became an angel energy healer, an oracle card reader. Um, I have studied with Heather Ash Amara, and I've become a warrior goddess training facilitator and warrior heart practice facilitator. I earned my bachelor's in holistic health sciences, and then will be starting my master's and then moving on to my PhD in natural medicine. I've started my own business, and I continue to collaborate and share through writing and books and collaborative books, inspirational stories. Um, so never stop believing in yourself and your dreams. You're
No,
important, and they matter. Your dreams matter. Listen to your heart and follow it. And you know, the healing journey is going to be messy,
yeah.
but you can have fun along the way too. It's not always going to be difficult. I do have fun at times in my healing journey, but there will be times when you want to give up and you think that it's too hard, but it really isn't. You'll overcome it too.
Yeah, and I think that your message and your story is so powerful, and it's also connected with something that I just listened, that Tony Robbins was talking about his childhood and the abuse of his mother with him and all the things. And I cannot forget the message or the sentence that stuck with me about how nowadays new generations are very weak in terms of just having a little hardship in their lives, that if they listen to a story such as yours or his or anyone that you share in the hospital, they could see that it's nothing. What happens to them many times is nothing, and you can turn your life around from the worst scenarios, the worst situations. And as you mentioned, what they just need is one person that can listen to them, and the light of spirituality, the light that you can be open to feel that you are not alone, as you mentioned, no?
Correct. No, and that was when I reconnected to my spirituality, was when I knew that I truly wasn't alone. Whereas before I started my healing journey, there were times where I felt alone, even being in the same room with my partner. Um, so connecting to myself and my spirituality, God, Goddess, the angels, and the universe, that was when I knew I truly wasn't alone. And then developing, my ability to connect to loved ones on the other side also helped me realize that I'm not alone at all.
And do you think that when people suffers in their childhood abuse, and is the trauma and all the pain is replicated then in a pattern that you follow?
Yes.
Okay.
And oftentimes you're not aware of it as you're living it.
Yeah.
Um, like with each relationship, I can see how it progressed. Like my first relationship, I was with a drunk. An alcoholic, but he was a pleasant alcoholic. And he cheated on me like my father cheated on my mother. The
Mm.
next relationship, I was with another substance user, an alcoholic, and it was love at first sight. Um, but then I was introduced to drugs, and he told me, well, that's good, you're never going to start. And then being like the rebellious young adult I didn't listen, and I tried it, and I fell in love. I had a love-hate relationship with cocaine for 11 years. And then the next relationship was the one that was just so toxic and so abusive. Um, I was with a man who had lots of money, and he provided me with a lifestyle, drugs and controlling. Um, and I was dependent on him for everything. And it was hard to leave. There aren't many resources out there for women with no children leaving a domestic violence situation. And it's really difficult, and I fell through the cracks. And I kept going back to the original abuser, my father, because of the way or lack of structures and organizations that we have in place to help women. So my ultimate goal is to have a healing center and a retreat center for domestic violence survivors, especially older women, because there isn't much out
Yeah. Huh. What was the before you break the cycle, what was happening inside of you, or what was like the light that allowed you to look within yourself and to say, this is it, no more, and I will leave?
I was fortunate to have online sisterhoods that I belonged to, and we would meet a couple times a month online, or I would use the Facebook group to connect. Um, and then just I would, hide in the bedroom and do my angel meditations, although my partner at the time was interested in angels and believed in angels, so he didn't mind,
Yeah,
and if
what
I
you
did
were doing.
my right, and he did pay for my aromatherapy certification and one of my my angel messenger certification classes, so he's not all bad. um I was, I don't know how to look at it. I guess in some ways I was fortunate to be the one that he felt comfortable confiding in, but it also cost me the abuse and the wrath of paying for all that came before me.
Mm.
Um, and I got to see a side of him that nobody else got to see. I got to see all that hurt and pain. Where on the outside, like me, he was more, instead of putting on a masked smile, he put on the
Hmm.
face of a clown. And I just forgot where we were going with that one. Sorry, David.
The no, the light, the breakthrough.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had just become so miserable. Um, like I was just dying inside. Like my soul was just like almost like a desert, cracked desert, so dry and just wilting away because I knew that's not what I was meant to do.
Mhm.
Sit there and do drugs all day. Um, you know, um, and I just hated the abuse. I hated not being trusted. Like we both didn't trust each other. I mean, the jealousy and the accusations between us were just, it was just miserable. And I just didn't want to live like that, and I couldn't live like that anymore. And I knew I couldn't save him, and the only person that I could save was myself. And if I wanted something to change, that means that change had to begin with me, and I had to leave. But it was hard. It was really hard. And if I didn't pray to have the strength to take back my power and learn how to love myself, and if I wasn't given that divine 2x4, I don't know if I would have been able to break free.
There is one line in the book that you share about Don Miguel Ruiz,
Yes.
and he says that the first person that you need to begin the healing process is with you.
Yes.
So, can you tell me something about that encounter with Miguel Ruiz?
Yes. So, in the quote in my book is every relationship in your life can be healed. Every relationship can be wonderful, but it's always going to begin with you.
Yeah.
So, I had learned about the Ruiz family and the four agreements with the warrior goddess training in Heather Ashamara. And about maybe 4 or 5 months after the car accident, no, about 4 or 5 months after Matt died, I went to see the Ruiz family up in Boston, well, a little north of Boston, at a book signing. And then the following day, I went in to, I think the title of the workshop was The Four Agreements for a Better Life.
Mm.
And it was such a turning point. And at this time, I had also had the knowledge that I was pregnant with my late fiance and my baby. He left me the most beautiful legacy and miracle that I could ask for. But unfortunately, another tragedy ensued, and I couldn't carry full term because my body wasn't healed, and my heart wasn't strong enough to carry full term. But at that point, I was still pregnant when I met them, and I remember talking to both of them, and I don't know where I found the courage when I walked into the bookstore and I scanned somewhere to sit.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Jose over in the back in the corner. And so I, scooted past a few people and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Jose, would it be okay if I sat next to you?" And he said, "Oh, sure, sister, go right ahead." And I really honestly don't know what in the world possessed me to do that, because I don't think I would ever do that now. Um, and I shared my story with, both he and his brother. And the following day, Miguel had shared a little bit about that in the presentation. And I remember the one big takeaway that day was from Jose. And Jose had said, to us that we are the loves of our own lives.
Hmm.
And that has stayed with me ever since. We wake up with ourselves every morning. We go to bed with ourselves every morning. We look in the mirror at ourselves every day, and we're with ourselves no matter what we go through. And so that's how, I continue to take that with me, and I continue to love myself because I am the true love of my life. Especially now with Matt gone. Um, that keeps me in and helps me remember the love lessons that Matt taught me, and that has helped me not go back to what I knew before Matt.
And it is said that you need to love yourself first so that you can replicate that story. So by listening to the way your story was developed, I can just link the moments where you break from that abuse and that relationship that you had, and then a few time later you found Matt, and you found the love
Hmm.
that you were supposed to have, but because it started with you.
Yep, absolutely. And now I haven't opened my heart back up yet to let anybody, I don't want to say fill his spot, but there's no other way
Yeah.
to say that. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. But I'm perfectly okay being single, and enjoying life and doing things that make me happy for a change. I don't have to, live in fear. I don't have to worry about what anybody thinks anymore. I don't have to, I just do what makes my soul happy and lights me up. And that's helping others. I love to volunteer. I just became the librarian and the chairperson of the literacy promotion committee for the Daughters of the American Revolution chapter that I belong to.
Mm.
And for me, that is going to be so rewarding, um, to partner with other organizations to bring books and literacy and reading, whether it's to children at the library or schools. Right now, I had reached out to the United Way and maybe partnering with them on a program, or if it's in a veteran's home. Um, it's just going to be so rewarding to help others in that way also, and help spread the hope that way.
What can you tell me about the title of the book and the photo of the book?
Okay, so
You
the
can
book.
you can show it so that people can see the picture. Yeah.
So behind the masked smile, a survivor's quest for love. I got the title because I always hid behind a mask of happiness, a mask of smiles. I remember in ninth grade, after I had been raped, later in that school year, um, after the school had found out and I was seeing um, a rape counselor and whatnot, a friend of mine had said to me, "Oh, you're always so happy. You must have such a great life." And I just laughed at her and I said, "No, not even close. You don't know the hell I go through and what I live through every day." Um, so that's where Behind the Mask Smile came from. Um, and then the Survivor's Quest for Love is how my quest for love started when I was a little girl, trying to find love and acceptance within my family and my friends, and always constantly looking outside of myself, when really all I had to do was turn inward to find that love within myself. And that's how I went from trauma to triumph, and how I'm able to help others heal. And I know that I've gone through all of these um, experiences so I can help and relate to others and know what they've gone through.
Yes,
It's
it is really nice, the story behind that uh, cover, and how people can also relate to, because I don't think it's just something that people that go through that big trauma events use, but many of us use a mask about something, no?
yes.
Because we are always afraid to show ourselves just as we are.
Mhm.
And I was going to link that with something that you mentioned, that the person that you were married to and that he was abusive, he was all not bad. Why do you think that many people can have some can inflict so much pain in others?
He went through it himself. Um, he's an example of the wounded divine masculine. Um, he had a lot of hurt and trauma from past relationships. His father wasn't very encouraging, um, but he always saw his father strike um, any of his siblings once, and that was when his brother had um, come out of the closet and told his father that he was gay. And that was the one time he ever saw his father strike any of the siblings. But his father um, wasn't very encouraging and didn't encourage him to follow his dreams either. And then just the hurt, you know, from past relationships. And again, you know, even with my other um, partner who introduced me to the drugs, like that was another mask we used to mask the hurt and the pain that we're going. I remember with the last relationship, when I felt rejected, he was always in control of the drugs. So I would ask him, can I have more? And that was to get his attention, be it negative, but I wanted that attention and I wanted to mask that hurt I was feeling because I'm sitting with this man and I feel so alone.
Yeah.
And
Those are the things that also are to come together usually, and that was also linked to the title of the podcast, cultivating a new generation, because I also believe that we carry all that pain, we carry all those patterns, we replicate the pain many times, and we use many times the same masks as our parents, no?
because
So
that's what we see modeled to us and we don't know any better,
yeah,
you know. And my father followed the path that his parents, you know, he saw with his parents. And and it just goes right on the line until somebody finally in the family
break.
has the courage to step up and say no more. This is going to stop with me. This is going to end with me. And I'm that person in my family, and it's hard, um, because even now with my mother, my father, and my sister, sometimes the dysfunction continues, and so it is hard to be the one that breaks the cycle. Although they're proud of me, um, there's still some flack that comes with it,
Yeah.
but it's okay. Um, you know, I'm just an example for them, and I hope, that we're all on our own journey, and I have to meet them where they're at, you know.
Yes, and it is I think that it is also very difficult to break those patterns, to break uh,
Absolutely.
because we have two components that are very important, and we, as you mentioned, we are not aware of them. First is the emotional pattern, the emotional trauma that we suffer, and then it comes another one that is an epigenetic component that happens even when you are inside of the womb, and you are feeling all of those negative vibrations or negative emotions of your mother. So that's what happens generation after generation, and that can be carried 7 generations, no,
Yes,
until
it's so
someone
true.
breaks it, no.
Yes. And it's funny that you mentioned that because and one of my EMDR sessions with my therapist, I believe it was last week, um, I had pictured myself, I saw myself in my mother's womb,
Hmm.
and I was doing some healing around the trauma. And so I was sending love to my inner child, and then, it went all the way back to me being in my mother's womb, and then the love and light that was emanating, to my inner child and then to the fetus, and then that light went out to my mother, expanded out to my mother, and I was sending her that love and light and surrounding her in that. And then in the next EMDR like session right afterwards, my my grandparents came in from both sides, their parents, and it just went around. And then I just started to laugh in my head because someone's like, "Oh, you forgot your sister," so I had to pull my sister into the circle. And I was just encompassing my whole family in that love and light. So it's funny that you say that because I just had that beautiful healing visualization. And it just started by her asking, like, well, what does your inner child need? And then it just went from there. And I've never had such a beautiful EMDR session. Like we started with the trauma of like my not trusting my body because of the car accident, and I'm afraid at times of my body. Instead of being afraid of somebody else, I'm afraid of my body, you know. And then it just went like from there, like, well, I don't trust Western medicine. I don't trust Western medicine doctors. And then somehow it led all the way down to the trust or distrust, starting in my childhood. And then I asked the distrust, well, what do you need? And that's how it came to be that like we ended with that beautiful like sending of the love and light and healing. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah, and it seems that it was so powerful because you gather probably the 7 generations there.
I did. They were just coming into the circle, and it was just like, wow, they were just like one behind the other, and I'm like, wow, this is the most beautiful visit like thing I've ever
Yeah.
experienced through the EMDR and visualization and meditation at the same time. It was just like it was an amazing experience.
That's what everyone should do about everything, no? About how we start doing this healing process, no? And it all starts with knowing our story, knowing the patterns and everything. So to round up all this amazing story of healing and of breaking patterns and overcoming, what can you say to people that want to read the book? What is the most powerful message that you share in this book?
The most powerful message is that you're not alone. You can overcome this. Um, and on the back cover, um, it says this book of personal essays and poetry following the incredible transition life of the author is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and offers hope where there seems to be none. And another person who had also reviewed my book had said the same thing. She loves the message that we're not alone.
Hmm.
Um, and so just to have, such positive feedback, even in the community at the library, and and the book signings. I'm so glad I released it because it was a hard book to put out
Yeah.
there in the world. I mean, I'm talking about soulful books. I'm bearing my soul in this book. Um, and it could have gone either way. I could have gotten a lot of, you know, kickback, um, from those that don't support domestic violence survivors, you know. But it's gone such a beautiful way where I've gotten such great feedback, that my book was needed in the world. And so, like I said, if I can touch one person's life with my book and give them hope, it is so worth putting it out in the world. And
I
I want people to know that they're worth it, and you deserve it. You deserve the life you desire. You're so worth making your dreams come true. You really, truly do matter. And reach out anytime if you want, and I will help you through it.
and to give people the direction of where can they find you, can you tell them your social platforms, or what is the best place to find you?
I can be found at Bella Rose Healing Hands on Facebook. I also have Isabella Rose, author, artist, healer on Facebook. Those would be the best place, or you can reach out to me at bellarosehealinghands.com, and I will always respond to your email
Perfect.
personally, because that's one thing I made a promise to myself. No matter what, I'll always respond personally to any emails that come in.
Well, I am really honored, and I really appreciate all the messages that you have given to people, Isabella. And I believe that you are not going to touch just one, you are going to touch millions, I believe, of people that need now more than ever that resilience, that power, and that light that is inside of them. And now they can just relate with you, and they can just contact you in times of struggle, and just sharing stories and sharing the guiding light that is going to take you out of that and break the cycles.
Thank you, David. Yes, we all have the power and the magic within us to transform our lives.
Yeah.
I 100% believe in the magic within us and the universe, that connects us all. So that, we're all connected by that red thread, and we can transform
Yeah.
with the magic that we have and the power that we have within us.
Okay. Thank you, Isabella, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. So we will listen to each other on the next episode, and I encourage you to really make contact with Isabella and to buy the book behind her smile. Yes.
It's Behind the Mask, Smile, a Survivor's Quest for Love.
Behind the mask, smile. Yes, sorry.
Okay, and it can be found on Amazon.
On Amazon, yes. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you, David.
Isabella.
Thank you for having me on. It was an honor and a joy to be here with you and our listeners.
Thank you.